Class is called the Eightfold Path to Inner Strength. And this is like really basic Buddhist teachings. I believe it's one of the first teachings he gave was about the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. So very, essential, really important foundational concepts for us to kind of work with. So the precursor to the Eightfold Path is really the Four Noble Truths. So this was the teaching that the Buddha gave shortly after he became enlightened. And the first truth is that all life involves suffering. We have sickness, old age, and death. That's the impermanence qualities and the insubstantial qualities and the unsatisfactory qualities. So all of these things are part of a life, a human life, animal life. And sometimes in the West, everything's so kind of nice compared to, say, a third world country. And sometimes people will say to me, well, I don't have suffering in my life, I've got a beautiful house and a lovely family, I can't relate to this idea of suffering. But if we just go a little bit deeper, I think it's quite easy to see that we do have suffering, because even though we may have a lovely family who loves us and we love them, they're not going to be with us forever. So either one of them is going to leave sooner, or we are going to leave sooner. So there's always that quality of impermanence, even when things are going really well. Of course, now we have so much suffering in our world that it's not hard to be aware of this first noble truth. So it can be even the simple frustrations we have, in our rich country. We can't go out anymore. We can't go out to a restaurant. We can't go swimming. We can't, go on vacation, all of those kind of things. Or, oh gosh, I've got my kids with me 24/7, or my parents, all those kind of little frustrations. But then, of course, if we just look a little more broadly, we see the, vast amount of suffering in poor countries, where the fact that they have to have their markets closed, and means that, these poor farmers have no way to make any income at all, and, not able to feed their children. So children are starving in, vast numbers. So anyway, I think this COVID has given us a new perspective on this first noble truth about suffering. Anybody have any comments they want to make on that? Maybe how your awareness of suffering has changed since this COVID situation has started, either in your own life or when you view the world. Okay. All right, well, if something occurs to you, just please chime in, or you can always use the chat function too. So I will kind of put that, I guess if we do have any chats, those will show up. Oh, I'll just go ahead and open this in case you feel like you'd like to present a chat, you can. And then the second truth has to do with the cause of suffering, and it's sometimes expressed as frustration, and it's really like, I like to think of it like getting what you don't want and not getting what you do want. So it's when all those things are just not going your way. So it's a pretty subjective kind of thing, and it's just really what makes the suffering take hold in us, so like we can, be aware of this, impermanence. We're gonna not live forever. We're probably not gonna be healthy forever. you know, have all these frailties of having a body. But you know, if we can have a little perspective on that, and a little clarity, a little detachment, you might say, then we don't experience the suffering so greatly. But when we don't, when we're right up against it, and it's like, you know, I'm not getting what I want, and all these things are happening that I'm not happy about, then we get really frustrated, and we really do take the suffering to heart. It really disturbs us. So then, anybody have any comments on that one, on the second truth?
Rosalind, would you say that then that the cause of suffering is something like wanting, which is, you just described two kinds of wanting for something to happen and or have, and wanting for something to not happen, that wanting is kind of at the root of it?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Uh, sometimes in Buddhism, we talk about the three root poisons. So like the three root emotions from which everything else grows, and that's ignorance, greed, and hatred. So the greed part is what you're pointing to, you know, like, you know, getting what you, trying to get what you want. And then when you don't get it, you get frustrated. Or, and then hatred is usually like the pushing away quality. So the greed is like pulling towards you, and then hatred is pushing away. So like that would be like for the things that you don't want that are coming towards you. You go, no, I don't want that one. And then ignorance is kind of, it's sometimes called like indifference. You know, it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not really happy. I'm not really unhappy. You know, it's sort of like disengaged with your life. So all three of those can be pretty important in this suffering. You know, they're kind of the root. And then we have all kind of variations of those three. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, all right, good, thanks. And then we go on to the knowledge of the cessation of suffering. So the Buddha taught that it's possible to transcend this quality of the suffering that we just have been talking about. So that's really good news. We can't change the fact that we've got a body, a human body in our case, and that, you know, we're going to die at some point. We're probably going to get sick at some point. We're going to experience all kinds of small sufferings and maybe some great sufferings. But what we can do is not be so attached to those experiences. If we put a little space between ourselves and our experience, then we have a little perspective, and it allows us to see what's going on more clearly, and not take it so personally, not get so upset with it, not get so angry, frustrated. We can just kind of look at things a little more objectively. Okay, this is how it is. There's a lot of suffering going on in the world. This being that has my particular name, you know, is experiencing some suffering, but I don't have to take it so deeply seriously myself. I don't have to suffer so deeply. I can take this a little more lightly. So that's kind of what we want to be aiming for. And then there's, any comments on that one, on the third truth? That there is a way out of this. Okay. Then the fourth truth is...
Rosalind?
Yes, that sounds like Michelle.
It's Michelle. Yes, hello. It reminds me of interpreting our own personal experience as almost a dream state, not being so attached to it. That popped up in my mind when you were talking about that.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. In fact, that's one of the ones, a traditional Buddhist analogy they use, that we have to be able to see that this suffering that we've been talking about is really kind of like, it can be looked at as illusory, as an illusion, almost like a dream, or there's some other similes we actually talked about in our last class of the six perfections, like a bubble in a stream of water that, you know, is going to one moment be there and next moment not there. So yeah, it helps to look at things that way, because in some ways there isn't a big difference between our dream state and our waking state in some ways. You know, we still have these bodily sensations that cause images to arise and thoughts to arise. And if we can just kind of see that that's what's going on, you know, we're feeling some sensations in the body, they're manifesting as thoughts, from thoughts maybe they turn into actions. You know, we have to see that this reality we think is so real is, when we look at it, when we really examine it closely, there's definitely some aspects to it that are very phantom-like or dream-like. You know, there's no real solidity that we can hang our concepts on, or our ego on. So is that clear to everybody? Any other comments or questions about that one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Michelle. Great example. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so this fourth noble truth, the way out of suffering, is the Eightfold Path. So that's what we're going to talk about for this next 8 weeks, is what this path is. You know, how do we get out of this suffering? And we're going to focus on one of the branches of the path each class. So I thought I'd just first briefly go over them, just give you an overview, and then we're going to focus on the first one a little more carefully tonight. So the first one is right view. So that means having an understanding of the true nature of reality. And again, in our last class for the six perfections, we were looking at this because the sixth perfection, the perfection of wisdom, also really focuses on the true nature of reality. And this kind of points to what Michelle was talking about, how, you know, when you really examine the nature of reality, there's no real solidity there. You know, we are just bunch of atoms put together. You know, I think 7 years ago, none of the cells that are in our body were even here. So we're kind of really completely different being than we were even 7 years ago, physically, you know, or scientifically. So, you know, this concept that, you know, we have this name and this form and this history, there's a little bit of kind of maybe a sense of reality to it, but there's no real solidness to it. And so that's what this view is pointing to. And like I say, we'll go into this a little more thoroughly later in the class. The second is right resolve, and that's the aspiration to act with correct intention, doing no harm. So that's pretty straightforward. You know, sometimes maybe it's a little unclear what's going to be harmful or not, but mostly I think we know what's going to be harmful to others. Sometimes we have a little more trouble figuring out what's going to be harmful to ourselves. You know, or we know, but we still don't change our actions. And just mention, like, this word right, you know, sometimes it's translated as wise, so wise view, wise resolve, wise speech, but right is maybe a little closer to the Sanskrit or the Tibetan. It's just, you know, this is kind of like the best way to do this, you know. So that's why we use that word. So right speech, again, you know, avoiding lying or harsh speech. Usually they talk about also avoiding things like idle chatter, you know, gossip, or, you know, backbiting, that kind of thing. All those kind of things that we can do with our speech that are less than wholesome and positive. And then for right action, that would be not killing, stealing, being involved with in sexual misconduct, that sort of thing. And again, that reflects some of the things we studied with the 6 perfections as well. So there's kind of correlations between these 2 systems of teachings. And then for the 5th, we come to right livelihood, and that's choosing an ethical way of making a living. So, you know, of course, we don't want to be doing things like stealing, or, you know, money laundering, gun running, all those kind of things, which probably most of you are not involved in, I'm guessing. But, you know, it's also things like not killing for a living, so not being a hunter, or, you know, being involved with maybe even like farming, you know, ranches where they kill the animals. So that is considered, you know, not a great livelihood if you're interested in following a spiritual path. And even being involved with making intoxicants. So sorry to tell all the winemakers in our county and in Napa County, but, you know, generally it's not considered the most best choice for a livelihood. And then we come to right effort, and that's acting with skillful thoughts, words, and deeds. So, you know, again, there's one of the perfections that's similar to this one, the perfection of vigor. So it's just, you know, really being aware of our thoughts, for one thing, and our words and our deeds, and then making them as skillful as we can, as positive as we can. I'm going a little fast. Does anyone have any comments or questions so far about any of them we've mentioned? Okay, we'll just keep going. And if you do, just please, you know, chime in. And I actually, I turned off the chat because it's a little hard for me to see the PowerPoint while the chat's up. So if you do have something, why don't you just go ahead and unmute yourself. So right mindfulness, that's being mindful of one's body, feelings, and thoughts. So, you know, this is something we talk about a lot, the body, the breath, and the mind, our body, speech, and mind. And so it's really important, because if we have some negative thoughts, that is going to lead us into a path that's going to eventually make for negative actions, so, or speech. So if we have, you know, we're thinking bad thoughts about somebody, and then, you know, next thing we know, we're saying something strong or, you know, unpleasant to them, and next thing you know, we're doing an action that's unpleasant. So it's really important that we kind of have control of our minds, so awareness of what's going on in our minds. And then finally, right concentration. So that's practicing skillful meditation. And again, this is similar to the one of the 6 perfections as well. So to me, what makes Buddhism one of the more unique religions, you might say, or paths, is this emphasis on meditation. Because it's so important in helping us to develop that right view, that view where we can see ourselves as not so solid, not so real. And that helps us to be able to really change our consciousness, change our awareness, so that we really can kind of transform ourselves into a different level of consciousness that has a big difference in how we live our lives and how life lives us. That's a really important one. Okay, now any
Rosalind?
yeah,
Hi, it's Michelle again.
okay.
So I was thinking that, yes, I lost my train of thought. Oh yes. So the middle way would be to, you have a physical body, therefore you want to wear a mask when there's smoke, but the ultimate way is I don't really have a physical body. And I think it's important to find that, happy middle, so that we take care of the body that we are given, even though it doesn't really have a personal identity to it. It still exists in time and space.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of putting my flag up for the middle way, not the old complete, I am nothing way, especially during these fires and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Michelle. And that's one of the really important teachings of the Buddhist path too, is that sometimes people will start to use this as an excuse, like, oh well, there is no reality, so I can do whatever I want. What difference does it make? But that's not how we should be viewing this, because, well, actually in Buddhism they talk about relative reality and ultimate reality. So on an ultimate reality level, yes, there's no difference between you and all the other beings in the universe, and you and the atmosphere. You're not some separate being. But on the relative level, it does matter what you do. It does matter if you wear a mask and protect your body. It does matter if you, hit another person or say something nasty to another person. So, yeah, it's really important to be able to see both sides. So, yes. I think there was a Zen story about a student who was saying, "Oh yes, I've understood the perfection of wisdom. That there is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind," which talks about that. And so the teacher came up and kind of pinched his nose, and he goes, "Ow, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, see, there really still is a nose, on the relative level." So yeah, that's very important, really important that we keep that in perspective. So thanks for bringing that up, Michelle. Any other comments?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on these 8 in general before we go into the first one in more depth? Okay, so for right view, there's several things that are part of that. The first and most important is seeing the nature of reality. So that's kind of what we've been talking about, the fact that we are all interconnected, and that there's an openness to our embodiment as human beings that is really important for us to be aware of. Sometimes, we can talk about the fact that in time, maybe like I mentioned 7 years ago, this body that we're experiencing now didn't exist. And maybe you go back to your childhood, early childhood, and you've got some memories things that happen then, but really on some level you're really a different being than you were at that time. So when we can kind of, and then if you look ahead in the future, you know, maybe 100 years from now, okay, what is this body going to be? Well, you know, it's going to be ash, or it's going to be reincarnated into another body. It's not going to be a solid physical presence like it is now. So sometimes that helps to kind of look in the sequence of time, you know, like, well, what, or maybe even before you were born, you know, what was this experience of Rosalind White, you know, during, you know, 100 years ago, and what's it like now, and what's it going to be 100 years from now? So that can sometimes loosen that up a little bit. And we talked about space also, so that's the time aspect, but the space also aspect. You know, we're basically, human beings are made up of many countless number of molecules and atoms. We've got the 4 elements making up our body. I believe we're over 90% water, what, 98% water or something like that. We have earth element, if you consider the solid parts of the body, like our bones, things like that, is earth element. We've got air, of course, the oxygen that circulates through our bodies, and then the heat from all the chemical reactions that go on in the body. So that would be akin to fire. So we're, you know, made up of all these elements and atoms. And so when you look at it that way, you know, we're not just this one solid body, you know, we're kind of a really kind of fluid, moving, evolving, changing experience as we go from day to day. So it's just really helpful to keep aware of that, so that we don't get too caught up in like our ego and like all the little thoughts in our heads and the concepts of who we are and, you know, how we interact with other people. So that's what this is pointing to when they talk about the true nature of reality. And a really good way to experience that is through meditation, because it's a chance for us to really let the ego kind of settle down and, you know, not drive things so much, not be in charge so much, and just let our inner quality of energy, our breath, our hearts, our minds, just be able to open up a little bit and just really experience this integration within our own bodies, and then also within our world. Any comments on this one, this first aspect of the right view?
I have a question, Rosalind. So when they refer to, in this particular teaching, seeing the true nature of reality, are they referring to both relative and ultimate reality, or are you understanding they're referring to ultimate reality?
I think both, because I actually think to have a clear vision of ultimate reality, you do have to have an understanding of the relative reality too. You know, otherwise you'd be like that monk who, you know, thinks he doesn't have any nose, but, you know, when it gets pinched, he really does. So if we think, oh yeah, it's all open and, you know, there's no relative physical body that I need to be concerned about, then we're probably going to walk into a door, you know, or trip and fall over, you know, the rope that we just doesn't really exist, but, you know, is there. So I think it's important to have both, actually. But, you know, probably from like the more higher level of Buddhist teachings, what we're wanting to aim for is, like you say, more being in touch with that ultimate reality. And, you know, like William was saying, we're working towards enlightenment. So, you know, when we're kind of maybe more advanced in our meditation practice, and we've been doing it for many years, and maybe we're on a long retreat, then at that point, you know, we're going to be focusing more on the ultimate reality. And that's really what we want to ultimately be focusing on. But in the meantime, you know, we still want to focus on the relative, I believe.
Thanks, Rosalind. That's great.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this first one? You know, there's many hundreds of texts, you know, all about this first one, you know, so many of the, especially the more esoteric and the higher texts are, you know, are just all about that, you know, the nature of reality. And even in Buddhism, they talk about there's 13 levels of enlightenment, not just one, but, you know, all these different levels. And I think it refers to, you know, just a deeper, greater understanding of this very subject. So yeah, lots to be explored in that one. Okay, any other comments about this first one? Okay, then the next aspect is, it's sometimes referred to as karma, understanding how karma works. If we are ruled by the three root poisons we talked about earlier, ignorance, greed, and hatred, it's just gonna cause our pain to be increased. So, you know, there's going to be the natural amount of pain we experience as human beings. But if we don't keep these three root poisons in check, then we're just going to have more and more suffering in our life. It's important for us to understand how we do manifest these three root poisons, and do what we can to change being ruled by them. Anyone have any comment on that aspect of karma? Okay. And then on the other side, if we manifest positive thoughts and actions, such as the four measurables that we studied, you know, love, compassion, joyfulness, equanimity, then we begin to decrease our pain. So, you know, the Buddhist teaching of karma is that whatever action we have, it's going to have a certain result. And we have to be aware of that fact, that if we have negative or harmful thoughts, words, or actions, it's going to have a negative result. And if we have positive thoughts, words, and actions, it will have a positive result. And sometimes those things don't necessarily manifest for quite some time. So, you know, you might see someone who's been, you know, being dishonest for a long time. Like I thought of that fellow, Bernie Madoff, if you all remember, you know, he was doing this Ponzi scheme where he was collecting all this money from people, and then he would pay the people who invested earlier to keep them, keep giving him more and more money. So he just, you know, collected, you know, many millions of dollars illegally and in an unethical way. And especially he even did it to charities. So he kind of bankrupt charities and bankrupt these, you know, people with their life savings. And he was able to do it for a long time, get away with it. But finally it caught up with him. And, you know, I think he's, you know, serving a very long prison sentence right now. So, yeah, you know, we may not have the results immediately, but we will have them. And another way they talk about it in Buddhism, I think is kind of nice. They say, you know, if you want a lemon tree, you have to plant a lemon seed. You can't plant an apple tree, apple seed, and expect to have a lemon tree grow from it. So, you know, it's just kind of a very simple, down to earth way of saying, you know, like what you reap, ye shall sow. You know, of course, that's in a Christian tradition, probably Jewish tradition too. So those,
Rosalind?
yeah, Michelle,
It's Michelle again.
yeah, hi.
Yeah. Is there any truth to the statement that karma can be quickened the more practice, the higher practice you have, the sooner the rebound of an action will come back to you? Is there any truth in that, or is that kind of folklore?
No, I think there is some truth to that. You know, sometimes even in Buddhism, they'll say, you know, if you're experiencing some illness, that's a way of kind of burning through some negative karma. And then also especially the Vajrayana path, you know, I think we've talked about this before, but there's three main paths in Buddhism. One is the Theravadan, which is the traditional teachings of the Buddha, and it's considered to be that it takes many lifetimes to become enlightened through that method. And then the Mahayana is the middle one, is considered a quicker way to become enlightened, but still it's said that not many people can do it within one lifetime. And then in the Vajrayana path, which is Tibetan Buddhism is part of, they say, oh yes, it is very possible to become enlightened in one lifetime, but it's difficult. It's the steep path, so it's difficult but quick. So I think a big part of the Vajrayana path is kind of clearing out your bad karma from your past. However, you might end up doing that. Sometimes it's by doing good work or facing your weaknesses and your kind of your foibles, your problems. And I was just reminded of the Milarepa, who was one of the great Tibetan saints. And he, in his early life, did many terrible deeds. When his father died, his aunt and uncle kind of took control of all the wealth of the family and kind of made Milarepa and his mother their servants. And his mother was very upset and said, oh, you should go learn black magic so you can get back at them. So he did, and he did some kind of caused, I think, a hailstorm to happen when there was a wedding taking place with his family, and many people were killed by it. And so he had some really bad karma to deal with. And then when he ended up meeting a Buddhist teacher, the teacher had him treated him very harshly. He wouldn't give him any teachings, and he told him to go build a house. And then once it was built, he came along and said, what did you do? What are you doing? I never told you to build that. Take it all down, you know. And so he'd take it down stone by stone. And then that happened 2 or 3 times. So, you know, that was considered his way, Milarepa's way of, you might say, burning through his karma, or, you know, changing the karma around. So even someone who had murdered many people in his early life was able to turn things around and become enlightened. So I think that's what you were pointing to, right? Is that right, Michelle?
Yes, and I was also curious about different individuals' levels of practice. If the more experienced levels of Tibetan Buddhist practice practitioners see the results of their day-to-day karma more quickly than somebody who is less practiced, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I think the answer to that is yes. And there's another example from the text that they talk about. If you have an eyelash in the palm of your hand, it doesn't really affect you much. You don't feel it. But if you have an eyelash in your eye, you really feel it. It's very irritating. So that's kind of their way of saying that you become more sensitive the more you practice to your own weaknesses, and you see them more clearly, and so that enables you to do something about them, you know, to change them. So I think the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments so far? Okay. Well, let's see. So usually then for our next segment of the class, we do a little bit of practice. So we usually do some kumne, and then we do some chanting and sitting and meditation. So for tonight's practice, we're going to chant the mantra for Shakyamuni Buddha, which is on the screen there. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Ye Svaha. But before we do that, we're going to do a slow walking practice. And this is a practice that's done by many Buddhist groups, especially the monks in Southeast Asia do this. We had some monks with us from Burma at one time that came and they taught us this practice as well. So you want to just go ahead and stand up. And experiment and see if this can work for me. Turn my computer around so you can see me a little better. Okay, so you want to stand with your feet about hip distance apart, or even a little more if you'd like, because when your feet are closer together, it makes it a little easier to lose your balance. And when you're walking this slowly, it becomes easy to lose your balance. So feet, you know, nice distance apart. If you want, you can have your hands on your hips. That also helps with your balance, or you can even have them out like this, you know, helping with your balance. And so how this works is first we lift the heel of the one foot, and then the ball of the foot, and then the toes, and then we set it down, heel, ball, toe of the same foot. And then we lift the other foot, heel, ball, toe, and then set that down, heel, ball, toe. And I can tell you, you're not really able to see me too well, but I think it's not too complicated. So then we're going to just keep walking in this very slow way. And if you have room at your home to make a clockwise circle, that's a very nice way to do it. But if you don't have much room, you can also just do this in place, just kind of walking in place with this very slow movement. And as we do this walking, it can be really nice to focus on the senses, just letting them become really relaxed and open. And we can focus on the senses one by one. You know, first focusing on our sense of sight. And for that, you want to just really relax the eyes, all the muscles around the eyes, the muscles in the back of the eye where they connect with the brain structures. And just let any image that comes into your awareness, be very soft and relaxed. And so you can almost just focus on the colors and the shapes of the objects before you, and not worry too much what they mean, what you mean to them, what they mean to you, whatever, what kind of tree it is you're looking at, what kind of plant, what kind of object in your home. Just be aware of the colors and the shapes. And it's nice to have a really deep appreciation for the beauty of your world, of our world, and also for the fact that we have this wonderful sense of sight, that we're able to see our loved ones, see our environment, see the beauty in the world. And sometimes we can just have a really deep, heartfelt appreciation for that quality that we're able to see. And similarly with our sense of hearing, we can relax our ears, all the muscles around the ear, the neck, the throat, so that we can just be very sensitive to any sound that there might be coming in to our awareness. And also, again, be very appreciative of the fact that we can hear the beautiful sounds of music, of the birds singing, of our loved ones' voices, and that it gives us information, helps us navigate our world. So it's just such a wonderful sense that we have. And again, if we can just feel some really deep appreciation for that, it can be very soothing. And then also with our sense of smell, again, we can relax the muscles around our nose and our throat and our face. Relax all the muscles in the face. Just be aware of any subtle sense that there might be in the room where you are. If you have the window open, you might smell a little something from the outdoors, the trees or the plants near your house. Maybe someone's cooking something in your home, you can smell the smell of the foods. Sometimes we have a little lingering smell from our shampoos or lotions we use. Just be aware of any subtle scents that there are in the room. Again, have a deep appreciation for the fact that we can smell these wonderful smells of the plants and the trees and the food that we eat. And then finally we can, well, we've got two more, but next we can focus on our sense of taste. And usually we don't pay much attention to that except if we're eating or drinking something. But there's a kind of natural taste in the body, in the mouth. It's kind of the natural chemistry of the body. Just nice to be aware of that. Again, relaxing all the muscles in the mouth, the tongue, the jaw, the throat muscles. And again, having a real appreciation for the fact that we can taste all the delicious food we get to eat. All the different sensations of taste that we get to experience. And finally, we have our sense of touch. So, of course, that's all over our whole body. We have this ability to experience our world by touching different things, feeling the textures. You might feel your clothing as it brushes against your skin. Maybe your upper body has one texture for your shirt or your blouse, and your pants may have, or skirt may have a different texture or sensation as it moves against your skin. And it's just nice to kind of drop in and pay attention to those sensations in the body. Sometimes we get so in our heads that we even just block out all the feelings from our body. We don't even realize that we've been sitting at the computer too long and real stiff. Just, it's good to kind of take a moment to really focus on experiencing the sensations of touch in the body and what they're telling us. Maybe they're telling us we need to get up and move a little more, not sit by the computer so long. Maybe they're saying you need to relax, let go of the tension from maybe a difficult experience or difficult thoughts. And when we can be more open to our senses and what they're saying, it really does help us to integrate our body, our breath, and our mind in a more loving and integrated way. And that really does help us be a little more aware of the reality that, we're just one being, part of this beautiful universe, connecting with other wonderful beings in our universe. So we start to kind of loosen up those walls between us and our world. So then let's slowly head back to our chairs or our cushions. I'm going to do a little chanting and then some meditation. So if you'd like to sit in a chair, that's fine. If you'd like to sit on the floor or a meditation cushion, that's fine as well. Whatever is most comfortable for you. And we're going to sit in what's called the 7 gestures posture. And so the legs form a nice solid base for the body, either with the feet on the floor. It's better not to have your feet crossed, your legs crossed, but if you're, have your feet on the floor, have them flat on the floor. This gives you a nice solid base. And of course, if you're sitting on the cushion, or, you can sit cross-legged on a chair too. That's what I'm doing. That's fine too. And then you've got a nice solid triangle base from your legs that your legs are forming. And hands are generally on the knees, but they can also be in your lap with the left under the right, if you like that better. And shoulders are back and down, so if you want, you can kind of roll them up and then back and then down. So they're nice and relaxed and low. Chest is up and out a little bit, and that helps to straighten the spine, which is what you want to do with when you're in meditation. You want to have your spine as straight as possible because it lets the energy flow more smoothly. And also to help with straightening the spine, you can tuck your chin in a little bit, so that helps straighten the upper part of the spine behind the neck. And then eyes can be either closed or gazing gently on the ground in front of us, about 3 feet. And when we're not chanting, when we finish chanting, you can curl your tongue so that the tip of it touches the upper part of the palate behind the front teeth. And that curl helps to breathe evenly through both nose and mouth at the same time, which is a nice relaxed way to breathe during meditation. So we're going to chant this mantra, and this is a mantra for Shakyamuni Buddha. So he's the Buddha that lived in our era about 2,500 years ago. And so Om relates to the body, like the whole body energy. So it's called a seed syllable. So it's kind of related to the crown chakra at the top of the head and the whole body energy. Muni means sage or wise one. So oh, wise one. Maha means great. So oh, great wise one. And then Shakyamuni is the name of Shakya is the name of the clan that the Buddha came from, and it means lion. So, calling on the wise one of the Shakya clan. And then Ye Soha is it's kind of like an amen, or so be it. May it be so. May it be so that the Buddha's enlightened energy manifests in our world. Excuse me. So we'll chant this 10 times, and then we'll sit silently for about 10 minutes. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Yesvaha. 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 So while we sit, if you'd like, you can practice a visualization where we can imagine a beautiful golden light coming in through the top of our crown chakra at the top of our head and filling all of our senses, relaxing all the muscles in the face and the head with being filled with this light that does that. It helps to relax all the muscles and the tendons and all the structures of the physical body. And the light can flow into the throat, relaxing the throat chakra so that our breathing becomes nice and soft, relaxing the back of the neck, and flowing into the shoulders, relaxing the shoulders, and flowing down into the arms, the upper arm and the elbows, the forearms, our wrists, palms of our hands. As we relax the palms of our hands, it helps to relax our whole body because we have the acupressure points in our hands related to all the organ systems. And even our fingers can be filled with this beautiful golden light. And the light can then go into our torso, transforming all of our internal organs into a body of light, letting our breathing become very soft and deep and gentle, letting our heart rate slow and become very calm. And the light can flow into the pelvis, relaxing the hip area, the hip joints, flowing into the thighs, relaxing the knees, flowing into the calves, the ankles, finally into the feet. As we relax the palms of our feet, the soles of our feet, it helps to relax the whole body as well, because we have acupuncture points in the feet as well. And also relaxing the toes. You can wiggle them a little if you like, and letting the light flow into them. And if you'd like, you can imagine the light expanding beyond your body, out into the universe, touching all beings with the beautiful golden light, healing all the illness and worries and problems of humanity and Also, even the problems of all the animals, giving them at least a moment's of peace and joy. And if you do experience thoughts, let them just kind of come and go. Not so much chasing one after the other, but just let them go, almost like bubbles in a glass of water. If you'd like, you can also focus on the breath, breathing in nice golden light, breathing out any tension, worries, concerns. So does anyone have any questions or comments about the practices we did or anything we went over tonight at all? Okay, well, we're gonna just go on to what we're gonna work on for this coming week. And if anything does arise in our last few minutes, just please speak up. So for the coming week, it would be nice if you could write, if you're a writer at all, you know, if you keep a journal at all, or if you want to just write some notes. I think writing makes it a little more easier to really make it more concrete and really kind of bring the thoughts to the fore a little better. But not everybody likes to write, so if you want to just observe, that's fine too. But try to experience, try to be aware of any experiences you have with interconnectedness. You know, maybe when you're meditating or when you're feeling especially open and relaxed. Just be aware of what those sensations are like, that quality of when the edges of our bodies kind of loosen a little bit and we can feel an integration with our environment, or maybe when we have a really good interaction with another human being or animal, where we can feel the interconnectedness with them as well. Those are good experiences to pay attention to, be aware of. And also maybe pay attention to your karmic results this week. You know, just see when you do certain actions, what kind of results do you get from those? And just pay attention, you know, see if when you're experiencing negative thoughts, does it have any result? Or if you're experiencing positive ones, what kind of result that brings? Just kind of for your own personal experience, try to see how these concepts work when you're observing them in your daily life. And then if you'd like to chant the mantra, that's a really nice mantra. This is the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra. I think it's a very calming, peaceful mantra. And if you want, you can go on YouTube and find some very nice renditions of the mantra, which you can just play while you're, you know, doing things in your house or while you're working. Or if you'd like to play them to learn other chants, you can do that too. And if you can find 5 or 10 minutes to chant and then meditate for 5 to 10 minutes, that's really great. And you'll find if you can do that, it really makes a difference in how your day unfolds, especially if you can do it in the morning. It helps your day unfold in a much more peaceful way. But if that doesn't work for you, and evening is also a good time to practice before you go to bed, or at the end of the day, you know, letting the day go and feeling some deep relaxation before it's time for you to rest and sleep. So any other final questions or comments before we go for tonight?
Rosalind, is it possible to send the PowerPoint each week so we can go over